Losing a loved one is an undeniably heart-wrenching experience that leaves us feeling like crap. But there is sometimes an emotion that sneaks in there and makes us feel even worse, and that is relief. And then relief often leads to feeling guilty that we feel relief. And it starts this snowball of emotions that basically leave us feeling like we're just a horrible human being. If you are feeling this way after a loved one has died, you are not a horrible human being, and I'm going to explain why. Stay tuned. I feel like talking about relief is so important because it's one of those emotions that you feel in grief that not a lot of people like to talk about. And we don't like to talk about it because we feel like crap that we're feeling relief in the first place. But what I want to let you know is that relief is a perfectly normal emotion. It does not mean that we are not sad about our loved one's death. It doesn't mean that we're happy that our person died. It doesn't mean any of those things. So let's just set the record straight right there. Humans are complex beings. We can experience tons of different emotions at the same time. So it is perfectly likely that your heart-wrenching misery and a little bit of relief can coexist at the exact same time. Now, the most common and obvious example of this is when our loved one that died had suffered from a long illness. We had to watch that person go through all of this pain and struggle. And when they passed, obviously we were upset that they passed. But a lot of people, after their loved one goes through a long illness, have that sense of relief. And it can be a couple of different things. It can be relief that the person that we loved is no longer suffering because maybe they were in a lot of pain. It can be relief that honestly, our lives are a little bit easier now. If we were a caretaker, being a caretaker for someone with a long illness is exhausting and it's strenuous and it weighs on us. And it is totally okay and totally normal to feel a little bit of relief that we no longer have to be in that position. Relief is such a complex emotion, and it is often interwoven with our grief and sorrow. The problem is that society likes to portray grief a certain way. When we are grieving, we are supposed to be completely sad and overwhelmed and exhausted and upset. And when we feel relief, we feel like we're doing something wrong. It creates this dissonance between what we think we're supposed to be feeling and some of those feelings that actually sneak in. And then the problem is that it snowballs and we feel guilty that we're feeling this way because society tells us that it's wrong to feel that way. So then we layer on top that guilt, and we've got our sorrow and our sadness and our relief and our guilt all mixed together, just making us basically feel like crap. Here's an example from my own life. My mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer the month before my daughter Libby died in a car accident. It was my mom. Obviously, I was upset. She went through chemo and radiation and surgery and all kinds of struggles. She was told that she would make it a few months. She ended up living for 14 months after her diagnosis, which was great. We were glad that we had more time with her, but a lot of that time was spent in hospitals and in care facilities. And honestly, it was exhausting for me. It was hard watching her go through that and watching my mom, who was, vibrant and constantly on the go and never sat down, seeing her turn into this person that couldn't get out of bed and couldn't feed herself. And she looked like a skeleton. It was so hard to watch as her daughter, but it was also hard on me in other ways. I had lost my daughter. I was struggling insanely with my own grief. And then on top of that, I had to spend days and times in my grief journey caring for my mom and driving back and forth to the hospital, which was 2 hours away from where I lived. And That was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. And honestly, I became kind of resentful that I couldn't just be at home crying and sitting on my sofa and watching movies. It was difficult for me to deal with. It was an extreme example at first. But then as time went on, and a year passed and months after that, and I was still taking care of her, it was really difficult. I was working a full-time job. If you had to take care of someone, you understand it sucks up so much of your time and energy. And we want to be there for that person. And we are happy to be there for that person that we love. But it is at the cost of our own time and energy. By the time my mom went to hospice, it was extremely difficult because she didn't want to go. She was still lucid enough to understand that she wasn't going to get better. She could hear what the doctors were saying, but she fought it. She did not want to die. She wanted to keep trying to fight. And the doctors told us, my brothers and I, that they couldn't do anything else for her. She was too weak. I mean, she was 80 some pounds when she died. And there wasn't anything that they could do. They had tried surgery. The surgery itself had actually gone pretty well, but then the recovery, she was just too weak to recover like she should have. And it just snowballed from there. And so making that choice to take her to hospice was extremely difficult for all of us. It was the hardest decision we've ever had to make, honestly, because we knew she wasn't going to come out of there. And then she went in and was coherent for about a day, and then basically just kind of went to sleep, lived a couple of days like that, and then died while she was sleeping. It's just crazy, all the different emotions that humans can feel, because obviously I'm devastated that my mom has died. But on the other hand, I'm also relieved because I couldn't watch her get any thinner. I don't think she could have gotten any thinner. It was really hard emotionally listening to her call us. She would call us in the middle of the night and say we needed to get her out of the hospital and out of the care facilities, and that people were trying to kill her and they weren't taking good care of her. And that is so hard to listen to as, a child. And you constantly wonder if you're doing the right thing and if you're doing everything that you can, and that weighs on you emotionally. So when she died, there was definitely a feeling of relief of, okay, now maybe I can get some semblance of a life back. Maybe I can spend more time thinking about Libby and ways to honor Libby. And you feel guilty that you feel that way, but it's totally normal to feel that way. I struggle with it sometimes. I'm just going to be completely honest here. And some people might think this is horrible, but I'm all about honesty. So here we go. I live in my tiny house by myself now, and I wouldn't be here if Libby hadn't died. And most days I come home from work, I run some errands, I do my thing, I get back here, and I can work on things that I want to work on. I can read a book that I want to read. I can watch a movie that I want to watch. I go to bed when I want to go to bed, and I don't have to do anything for anyone else. And it is bizarre. It is a really bizarre feeling, but sometimes I do feel relief about that. I kind of look at my life like it's so much easier than when I was a mom of 3 kids running around like a complete nut. I wasn't necessarily super happy when I was doing all that. I was living my life for other people. And would I go back and do that again? 100%. Absolutely. I loved my children. I would do anything for my children. But if you're an empty nester, maybe you understand it. You finally start to figure out who you are and doing things for yourself. And sometimes it's really nice to not have to run around all night long to different practices and games and things like that. It's just you can kind of do what you want to do and figure out who you are. And sometimes that's a really nice feeling. But then, of course, you feel like shit for feeling that way. I feel like a terrible person when those thoughts pop into my head. So I am learning to try to give myself a lot of grace in that department and realizing that, I'm a complex human being and you are too. And just because a feeling pops into our head at some point doesn't mean we're a bad person. It doesn't mean that we didn't love the person that we lost with all of our heart. It doesn't mean that we are not devastated and we wouldn't give anything in the world to have that person back. It's just every now and then, it's kind of nice to not have to worry about somebody else all the time. And that's okay. That is normal. Grief is not a one-size-fits-all thing. It is a roller coaster of emotions. I say in my book, it's a cluster F. I don't want to get flagged, so I won't say it. But it's a giant cluster F of emotions. And all of it is normal. And all of it is healthy. And none of it means that we are bad people. Feeling relief amidst our grief just means that we're human with complex emotions. And acknowledging that is actually super healing and really good for us too. It is forward momentum on our grief journey. It is healing for us knowing that it's okay to find solace that our loved one's pain and suffering has ended. It's okay to feel any sort of weight lifted off of our shoulders so that we can take a deep breath and think, okay, it's okay to breathe a little easier. And most importantly, it is okay to talk about these feelings. They need to be normalized. I am sharing my experiences with you so that you feel like you're not alone, so that you know that other people feel these things as well. And it doesn't diminish any of the love that we had for our people. Love and grief are two sides of the same coin. So if you are feeling relief in any capacity after the loss of a loved one, please know that you are not alone, that you are normal, that it is okay, and that you can feel it without judgment and without guilt. If this resonated with you in any way, I would love it if you would comment below and let other people know your situation. Let other people know, yes, I have felt relief at some point, or yes, I feel like shit that sometimes I feel relief. I mean, that's me. Let people know if there's anything that helped you navigate these feelings. And I hope that by sharing my journey that you feel a little less like you are the only one in the world or that you're wrong for feeling a certain way. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, it would mean a lot if you could give it a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed so that my videos can help more people. As always, I'm sending you guys love and hugs, and I will see you next week. Bye.